Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at a really fascinating collection of sources you've brought together on how information moves.
Or maybe how non-information moves even faster.
Exactly. So, our mission in this deep dive is to really step back and look at the fundamental mechanics of it all. How do ideas, narratives, and, well, the most effective misinformation actually spread today?
Right. We want to get under the hood.
We're going beneath the headlines to look at the systems that actually make us believe.
And what the research shows is this incredibly effective, almost predictable engine at work.
Hmm.
We're calling it the mimetic machinery of misinformation.
Okay.
And here's the critical insight right up front. Certain narratives get huge, massive, not because they're true, not because they pass a basic fact check, but because of their emotional resonance.
So they succeed by being emotionally satisfying, not factually correct.
Precisely. That's the priority.
That just flips the whole script on how we think about truth in public life. If the goal isn't truth, but just replication, then we have to look at these ideas like a virus.
It's a perfect analogy.
So our roadmap today is to look at some really vivid examples to understand why fiction so often outpaces fact, how this machinery fuels tribalism, and what it all means for anyone, trying to think critically in this crazy environment. Okay, let's unpack this. So when we talk about ideas that thrive on feeling over fact, the source material points to one figure as a kind of perfect case study. Candace Owens. The analysis describes her narratives as, and I'm quoting here, easily verifiable bullshit claims that they fall apart under the slightest scrutiny. And yet she has this tremendous influence. So why does the machinery reward that specific kind of, fragility? Why is it so successful?
Well, it's a perfect example of how popularity can literally construct an artificial belief system. Your first assumption might be that her audience genuinely believes every single claim.
That they're convinced by the argument.
Exactly. But if you follow the money, which the sources do, the profit motive is it's impossible to ignore. This isn't just about ideology. It's a feedback loop.
A feedback loop? How so?
Well, massive attention clicks, shares, even the angry retweets. It all translates directly into followers, engagement, and then, real financial gain. The attention itself becomes a kind of validation.
So success isn't about being right, it's about generating cash flow from engagement.
That's the game. And that brings us to this core idea of memes, but in the scientific Richard Dawkins sense of the word.
Right, not internet jokes with cats.
No, not at all. A meme, in this context, is just a unit of cultural information. It's an idea that survives and replicates like a gene. But here's the key part. It has no requirement to be true or even beneficial.
Its only job is to get copied.
Its only job is to get copied efficiently. That's its sole survival criterion.
So what makes a narrative efficient in today's world?
Emotion. Pure emotion. Look at the data and the sources. Anger, fear, indignation, that powerful feeling of, a shared grievance.
The sticky stuff.
The absolute stickiest, fastest moving emotions. These ideas, these memes, they just latch onto that mental energy. Nuance is slow, it's expensive for our brains to process, and it's really hard to share in a tweet.
But a punchy emotional story
Is fast, it's cheap, and it demands your immediate attention. It just bypasses the rational brain and goes straight for the gut, for the limbic system.
And this is where fiction just destroys fact every single time. A fact requires homework. Fiction only requires a feeling.
Precisely. Fiction is always punchier because it doesn't have to follow the messy, complicated rules of reality. It can give you clean heroes and pure villains. So, in an ecosystem that rewards outrage and belonging above all else, the emotionally fittest idea is the one that survives, not the factually correct one. Truth isn't even on the table.
Okay, so if we take that mechanism idea as thriving on an emotional charge, the analysis then draws this really direct line between those profit-driven narratives and huge movements like QAnon. This takes it from just one personality to entire information silos. And the danger isn't just that they exist, but how fiercely they protect the belief inside.
And QAnon is one of the best recent examples of how information, once it's inside one of these self-contained worlds, gets this incredibly high emotional charge.
And a charge, like an electric current.
Sort of. It's a mix of fear, secret knowledge, and tribal validation. And that charge creates this deep, unwavering attachment to ideas that are demonstrably false.
And then key figures emerge.
Yes, and they don't act like analysts. They act like idols, or as the sources call them, priests of the lore. They speak with this perceived divine authority, handing out these little fragments of revelation.
Which just accelerates the groupthink. I mean, if the source is seen as divine, then loyalty is everything.
Absolutely. The need to belong, to be loyal to the group, it just overrides any kind of critical thought. Doubt becomes betrayal. Asking a tough question means you're working for the enemy.
And you become committed. The more you invest, the harder it is to leave.
It's a classic cognitive trap. Commitment consistency. You've put in so much time and social capital, you can't back out now, no matter what new facts emerge.
The sources highlight this one specific, almost unbelievable example that it lays the whole system bare. The creation of that private read-only board called Project DCOMS. Tell us why that board was so important.
Project DCOMS was, it was the inner sanctum. The main forums were a mess, with trolls and people faking identities. So the community set up this private board and said, this is the one true secure place where Q posts.
The fortress of truth.
The ultimate fortress.
Mhm.
If a post came from Project DCOMS, it was gospel. It was the sacred text. Unimpeachable.
So what happened in the fortress?
A breach. A clear intrusion. An enigmatic post appeared, signed with just a single letter, B, and the message was, well, it was devastatingly simple.
What did it say?
It said, fact versus fiction. We will not tell you which is which.
Wow. That's essentially the architect or maybe a high-level troll confessing, in the most secure place possible, that the whole thing was ambiguous by design,
Yes.
that the followers were invested in the story, not in any verifiable truth.
It was this moment of shocking clarity. It wasn't just trolling. It was a live demonstration that the authority was arbitrary. Anyone who could breach the walls could manipulate the narrative. It confirmed the whole system ran on narrative energy, not substance.
But here's the critical question. Did that confession break the movement? Did people wake up?
Broadly, no. According to the research, not at all. When the system was exposed from the inside, you saw this predictable cycle of denial.
They didn't question the lore.
They questioned the person who pointed out the post. They ignored it, they called it a fake, they cried foul, or the groups just splintered, patching the story with even more layers of denial. They attacked the heretics, not the belief itself. It proves that when you're that emotionally invested, any contradictory evidence just feels like persecution. And this is where we have to look at what happens when that mimetic energy, that charge, spills out into the wider world. We need to shift focus to the very serious societal shockwaves this machinery creates. The sources detail 3 major consequences.
Okay, let's walk through those. What's the first one?
First, and most obviously, is division. The mimetic game is zero-sum. It has to be. It works by creating these very clear, emotionally potent groups. Us versus them, believer versus non-believer.
They clash in the real world.
They clash in the perceptual sphere. So any chance for a shared reality or, agreement on objective facts, it just gets eroded. You end up with 2 tribes fighting over 2 totally different sets of facts.
And what does that do to the average person's ability to just process information?
Well, that's the second consequence. Gullibility. Minds that are trained over and over to accept emotionally satisfying but factually fragile narratives, what the sources just call bullshit, they start to lose their ability to think critically.
Like a muscle that atrophies.
Exactly. They become open floodgates, just propagating new ideas mimetically without any filter. And this goes way beyond politics. It affects how we look at health, finance, everything. It's an intellectual atrophy fed by an addiction to outrage.
And if you combine that division, that gullibility, you get the third consequence. Mob mentality.
Absolutely. The tribalism gets more and more intense, and it starts looking for a target to blame. Because the stories are built on fear and grievance, the believers start to crave a boogeyman to make sense of the chaos. They're given one, and then they demand its sacrifice. It's an energetic game that requires a villain.
Let's trace that energy back to the profit motive you mentioned earlier. Attention is energy, and money follows energy. How direct is that connection?
Oh, it's completely direct. The sources describe these figures, commentators, gurus, whoever, as energy vampires.
Energy vampires.
Yeah, they draw your focus, they monetize your outrage, and they consume your time. And all of that yields huge amounts of cash. It's prophesizing turned into a, quote, dumbed-down business model. They're just selling simple answers and emotional release. If the belief felt good, it was a success.
And if it made you fight someone?
It was even more successful because conflict generates the most sustained energy.
So the ultimate warning here seems to be against belief itself, which feels counterintuitive. We're taught belief is a virtue.
That's the crucial warning. Belief on its own isn't inherently good. Blind belief is surrender. And it's sold as a virtue, but it's what turns people into what the sources call, pretty chillingly, sheep with pitchforks.
Wow.
Easily led but violently focused. The only healthy place to be is believing what withstands scrutiny, what you can actually defend with evidence, not just what feels warm or gives you a sense of belonging. Otherwise, you're just playing the game, hunting witches, totally unaware that your energy is being monetized.
So we're really dealing with something much deeper here than just a social media problem. This all feels archetypal. These cycles of frenzied, emotionally driven belief systems, they've happened all throughout history, just at a different speed.
And recognizing that is key. The sources are clear. This is an archetypal, predictable cycle. It repeats in different forms, from witch hunts to stock market bubbles. It just highlights this deep, innate human susceptibility to trends, to salvation stories, to finding some kind of meaning in the chaos.
The sources offer two competing theories for why this cycle keeps repeating. The first one is, I guess, the optimistic view.
The optimistic view, yeah. It suggests these recurring social dramas are like a very painful learning curve for society. They guide us through these intense mental journeys, often full of pain, until we finally get it.
And the universe is replaying the script because we failed the test last time.
Exactly. It's nudging us toward growth, toward collective evolution.
That sounds nice, but maybe a bit too hopeful. What's the other theory?
The other theory, and the one the forces lean toward, is that this is an emergent bug.
A bug in our programming.
Basically, humans are fundamentally wired for stories. We're narrative animals. But that wiring is now being amplified and just totally distorted by technology, where algorithms reward the loudest, angriest, most divisive tales.
Because that's what gets the clicks.
That's what gets the clicks. The tech industry, maybe accidentally, created the perfect petri dish for these mimetic ideas because they deliver the fastest dopamine hits of outrage and belonging with zero connection to reality.
So it's a feedback loop. Algorithms chase attention, and our attention chases raw emotion. And certain people marketers, cult leaders, pundits, they see this pattern and they exploit it.
They do, and they're using ancient tactics at light speed. They're playing on basic human fears, fear of the other, fear of change, the promise of salvation if you just believe, but they're doing it on a massive global scale. It's not some grand conspiracy. It's just the hyper-optimization of human vulnerability.
But if we're looking for a way out of this cycle, the analysis does offer a kind of silver lining in all the chaos.
It does. The sheer absurdity of watching something that is obviously incorrect thrive. It can be a moment of powerful illumination.
How so?
It forces you to confront the mimetic nature of ideas in a way that just reading dry facts never could. When you see a clear falsehood generating millions of dollars in passionate devotion, it should trigger some serious self-reflection. It's a nudge to audit your own echo chambers. It makes you realize how easily a good story, even a false one, can be swallowed whole. Clarity, unfortunately, is often born from that kind of intense cognitive pain. It demands we think harder.
So, after all this, what does it all mean for us? This deep dive really shows that the mimetic machinery of today ensures that ideas thrive on emotion, not truth. And that creates huge risk, division, and just an alarming level of gullibility.
And the ultimate counter to it is awareness. It's a continuous audit of what we consume. The sources really stress that we have to learn to stay suspicious, but without becoming bitter or cynical. We need to practice believing under pressure, which means demanding evidence, demanding substantiation, not just blindly accepting the lore because it feels good and promises you a villain to fight.
I just keep coming back to that post. That post in the Sacred Project Decomms board, the single letter B in that line.
Yeah.
That fact and fiction blur until we demand clarity. That wasn't a warning about the world, it was a warning about the believers themselves. The pattern is clear, the energy is predictable, the vulnerabilities are ancient. So the question for you is, now that you can see this predictable cycle, what information are you consuming just because it gives you that satisfying, immediate emotional punch? And are you ready to step out of the energetic game?